Many teach up for it. Tamukumasa Kumuyari Porum Bozeli Mavali Buddhism outside. Siswali Pada the Buddha day of Chimbida don't only check our Paria. Very little Abdullah Vitalici. Outside the Chibi of Maya Ayuma, the Jubilee Takara, Lulu Takara, show me the Dika. The Dika Luci, and the sea level decided on zero. Secondly, Madakare Suzu Sisi Livoli the Maria looked at it. Taking was a great Sayadaw at the Maria. And the sacred of Miami is Lucia. He said, I will be alive. For me, I am a Sayadaw finally. How could you do that? Do you know what such a thing? Do you see that? I got looked at for my secretary of policy, one by looked at the other. One by tongue, one by tongue of my secretary of policy, one by that. One by tongue of the other. However, it is really that. How do you call it? A chain Agara to it. Later, Tony looked at the Lucia, the one by Panditarama Santana Yoni did it. But you will see the Sarai Mara Guru Suicide about it. Chamber of Maya Ayoma Secretary, Susie Pino, Dava Yigira. Susie Pino, the Sarvasi Gamadora. Susie has secretary, the Chiyan is the chair. Our corner, I did that. So early, Chile. It is only sooner about the theatre. Somebody Yavia. The Kunak says that this, and I see Dhamma, Dhamma, Kama. But the near seems that it Dhamsana, Ayabodi, Dhamsina, Saravodi. Didi Shela Dhamsina, Mamagati, Dhamsina, give it so needed. Tanzania, Kurandi, Saraketa. The Ludia, whatever. Social tourism, the charge is quite the bigger. Passia. Boy, I am Maluchi, boy, I am Yatata, Tijaria Tata. Ponali Maluchi, Ponali Tata, Tijaria Tata. Boy, Maluchi, Biaria Tata, Tijaria Tata. You don't know your social tourism for go with your theater. I do a thing you have. Sadhdu to get at it. Caesar did it to get at it. I will never stomach however. Peter Yogiha, Pongu was a foreign audio. Look at my TV solution. Mamanganga, Guru Jajati, Pilisongo, Guru Jajati, Guru Jajati, that again, absolute. The new previous Lucia, Buddha don't have this Gami ha. Let me out of the Boguri. Guru Sadato Muniha, Bala Punjab to the letter of Oli. None of Lava. Don't have this Gami. Family at two Shila is the Shia. Darkmane Suravoli. Guru Lekandrishi, Dadadia Chitara. Every Atadadia, a she died Shulu. Guru Dimu. A demon that says of you, all are the Tadatia, Lekam, to your unit. Young Monkey of Oli, Lekam, year of
Yesterday, Sayadawgyi said that starting with the evident arising objects, starting with the rising and falling, observing every physical action while it occurs, applying ardent effort. In that time, mental energy is present, and there's also aiming. So with this, there's the energy of pushing the mind to the object and the energy of aiming the mind. And when these two are applied, then sati sticks firmly to the object. Which one has been trying to observe? Which one has been aiming at? When sati sticks to the object, the mind doesn't run anywhere else. And thus the mind becomes collected. This is due to samadhi. The mind falls collected on the object. And when this occurs many, many times, then the object on which the mind falls collectively is known. Knowledge arises. So when the mind falls collectively on the rising, one knows the rising. When the mind falls collectively on the falling, one knows the falling. When the mind falls collectively on the abdomen and notices movement, then one knows the movement of the abdomen. When the mind falls collectively on stiffness of the abdomen, one knows the abdomen's stiffness. But this knowledge is still tied up with the manner of the abdomen rising and falling. What one knows is also, when one knows the stiffness of the abdomen, the stiffness is mixed up with the place where the stiffness is occurring. But as long as one is applying effort and aiming, what is the only important thing is for the mind to be collected on the object. It doesn't matter that the knowledge is not yet pure. If the mind falls collectively on the object, one after another without a gap, then amazingly strong energy will be developed, and this is what we practice to develop. When samadhi occurs one after another without a break, it becomes very strong. And then the type of knowledge called sampajanya arises. Sampajanya, one knows correctly, one knows fully, and one knows for oneself. And that knowledge is not confused, it's not unclear, it's very distinct. One knows the object is one thing, and knowing of the object is another. One knows the movement of arising is one thing, and knowing the movement is another. One knows the moving of the falling is one thing, and the knowing of that is another thing. So the knowledge is very clear. It's not mixed up. And this knowledge is special when we compare it with the knowledge that can be gained by reading or by reflecting. So if yogis observe the arising object and know it, then this knowledge is correct. This knowledge is distinct, special, and correct. This knowledge is complete, distinct, and special. This knowledge goes to oneself. If one practices and encounters this then one knows how accurate the words that Buddha used is, because one sees that it matches one's experiences exactly. And when one feels about one's experience that this is correct, then faith arises. This comes due to one's own practice and one's own personal knowledge. It comes to acceptance of what one has seen through one's effort, and it is not blind faith or wavering faith.
Yogi aloko, who will sit up for you, he won't do it. See in it, to go and look to body. To go and look at me and look at how could that water. How could it fit out of there? But they are your blood, money or the lower. Jara. Puriyatati Tamari, Sayadawgyi Travel, nothing like that. These are a little near by Dhamma. A little near the can be a little never people who heard this with a galley, who had this. Toya Tanio, Ariapo, Limu, Jesus, Tornado. Here needle, tiny needle, here was needle, a cheese body. You don't have your kilometer go where the Yatanama needed to the soul at the moment. These are the city. Let's see, Josie, Buddha, Son, Son of Mira. You don't cut down a little bit of when I'm a solid. Takuya Muyari. Kurisa Muyari. A day where Ariabu handed one minute of some of the about it. Tell you some of the city. Kaya never sees it, take a seat. Kaya takes up for the Jesus, these are for night. I never say, don't keep it a diary. Pain, sorry, enjoy the line, so I do keep it a from what should be a need to get down. Who never see where he say, Yogi and you can use the Yogi down, you're a lot of people see Peter down, Kuluam down, Kiava, down the Lucas, Yanamo, down the Loma, Lucas, Yava, young lady down there. She did Tamatale, Diamond, Luna Kuma Solution, the great a look, the market, yogi Pizza, they eat you. A yeji can say, I mean, these one in the Luna Tavido, they do near a day look, you want to look out. Too low, lower Piazzi, Luya, and in it. Good doing because they do not have hope fools or what you now let travel. The
phrase Mahasi Sayadaw. This describes the task of the yogi. When one is doing this practice to develop the mind and knowledge, this practice is high-level work which good people do. And when one does this practice as described in this, according to the meaning of this phrase, then Virya, Sati, Samadhi, and Panna, these all come to be. And one is practicing, one is developing the practice as we do this. That means we're working to develop the practice. So in this phrase, the word viharati, it means to live or to dwell. One dwells. But in this, it doesn't just mean, what it really means is, it refers to the way we are, our posture. There are four main positions that we're in, at one time or another: walking, sitting, standing, sitting, and lying down. These are the four main postures. And to be in any one of these postures is what is meant by viharati, to dwell. And in addition to the four main postures, there are also smaller actions due to causes. One bends or stretches, leans, lifts the head, blinks, opens, closes the eyes. So these are all what we do when we dwell. And one has to make effort, concerted effort, so as to observe this. So it is said, kayan Mahasi viharati. That means that one dwells, repeatedly observing the arising posture, the four main postures, the arising small minor actions. One observes the arising physicality as it occurs. That is, rising is rising, falling is falling, bending is bending, stretching is stretching. But this phrase, kayan Mahasi viharati, expresses the yogi's job. If one has taken on the role of a yogi, then one should do the work of a yogi, so that one will get paid a salary. So just like when we have a job, we have to work the required number of hours, and we have to do the task. So too here it is also important, it's very important to be a true yogi. And because it's important, the meditation teachers are urging the yogis with loving kindness and compassion. It's not like the boss who wants the worker to work well for his or her own benefit. The teachers are not speaking for their own benefit. The yogis should understand this.
Atta so that the Tavapadan labor piece of Mugava Dhamma Suraga the Piti of Tanza Lobadari the Chia of Asayane Atawame Pipi Auto Diary no Tamaki our Talo Asayane. We should do it and see a good diary, truthful Asayane. I told the good diary, Kiri, Tanzina, Kiri, Eddie Tanzina, good diary. The Kulu will set that your body. In Ari Shila. Is on our level to the Kunet, the Mangam got any to the Sadhya Sura Jochi, Yogi, Julie, Sekozi, Taki, Lulu Tiari, Atolu, a Joy with Yaka, a Yogi with Jojo, Adari with. Really very chow. Below is early. We were go, you need to all do say that. You didn't see on Joe and Ma. And I will never nearly see the first somewhere. Then Korea now in the Gagari Pora. Maybe you will go to Navi, should let me down alone because here. The Maria should have the Dika knew. Could let them near so that a little sorry, so tower. I was on Navi out of the lecture video. You were here called the day, the good you see. So I did the city. The good yoga holy. Shall make Gulu, Mapian yoga holy Rama. I always call our holy February, Taragati, Yashivare. The Gulu, the other Kaha. China, Jamanas are born of the Urina lady, Pila, Kuna, Coco, Hiya. Where the street from a new Lucy and not the Maria the Sayadaw. Popular Sayadaw, Uriya Sayadaw, Chakra. Should be young to the Patti Chakra. But you young, very much is about the Patti. That the mother and Luna will call it a song, very song. The art of the Sayana is the sea. Very soon, the Lucy of our. The Valor Nepal is a Luma. Sonny Badi, she is the sea and all. Coco, Hiani, Coco, Janus, and all. The other year were the data Malay.
The word ardently refers to the four kinds of supreme effort called samadhana. This is applying effort so that the unwholesomeness, the greed, hatred, and delusion, which has not yet arisen, does not arise. Applying effort so that unwholesomeness, which has arisen, does not arise again. Applying effort so that the pure, clean, wholesome mind, which is not yet arisen, arises, applying effort so that the wholesome mind arises again and again and is developed to completion. So, in order to try in this way, one can't have any regard for one's life or limb. One should simply tell oneself, may my muscles, may there be nothing left except for skin and bones. May my blood dry up. When I'm applying this effort, I'm not going to have any regard for my life or limb. If one has consideration for one's life or limb, then one will lean. And when there's a little bit of pain, one will shift. And at that time, samadhi will not be able to arise. So one can't have any regard for one's life and limb when one practices. No one has yet died because of making effort in the practice. No one has developed disease through the practice. And people who come to the practice with incurable diseases have been cured. There are many people who are witnesses to this. So, when one sits, and due to causes Vedana arises, if one moves, changes one's posture, then samadhi won't be continuous. The reason for that is that one's virya becomes flat. So one needs to be brave, and this brave, courageous effort is what is meant by samapadana virya, or supreme effort. And for people who have been practicing for a while, gets quite well developed. If one has practiced for 1 week or 2 weeks, and this type of effort is not there yet, it means that the yogi is favoring him or herself. And if one favors oneself, then it won't be very easy to gain the Dhamma.
Indriyasဆိုတာရှိပါတယ်။ရှင်ရဲ့အမှန်တရားတွေရှင်ရဲ့ဖြစ်သောအမှန်တရားတွေရှင်ရဲ့ဉာဏ်ရဲ့အမှန်တရားနဲ့ရှင်ရဲ့ဉာဏ်ရဲ့သူရောက်ကြောင်းရှင်းကောင်းအဖြစ်မှာအမှန်တရားတွေတော်တော်ရှိပါတယ်။ရှင်ကြီးကရှင်ရဲ့အမှန်တရားတွေဒီအဲဒီရှင်ရဲ့အမှန်တရားတွေကိုအထင်ကြီးပြီးတော့ရှင်ကြီးအကြောင်းပေါ်တယ်။ဒီဖို့ပယ်ဖို့ကိုအရေးကြီးပါလားတိတိတော်လို့ရှိရင်မတိလို့ဒါရတတ်မဲ့မှုဖြစ်ရတာတိတိတော်ပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒါရတတ်မဲ့မှုတွေလည်းကျင်းသွားတာပဲအောက်ထုတ်လို့ကိုယ်ရဖြစ်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကြီးတော်လေးတွေဖြစ်လာတာပဲအတိညာလေးအစစ်စစ်စစ်စစ်ဖြစ်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ယုံတတ်တာဆိုတော့လည်းဖြစ်လာတာပဲကြီးတတ်တာယုံတတ်တာယုံကြည်မှုတွေဖြစ်လာတယ်ကိုယ်ရမကြောင်သေးဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အခုအထုတ်နေတဲ့ခါမှာဒီလိုအထုတ်မှုရောဘာဝနာစေမျိုးမဖြစ်ဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒါရောကမောဟတွေကျင်းပြီးတော့ကြည်လင်းတဲ့စိတ်ဖြစ်ရောမရှိပါဘူးရှိမှလို့ဓမ္မနဲ့ဓမ္မဆက်ဆက်ပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေခုနစောစောကပြောခဲ့တဲ့အတိုင်းဘာဝနာစိတ်အစဉ်တွေပဲတောင်းကြည့်လို့ဖြစ်နေပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒါမှကြည်တတ်တာလည်းဖြစ်လာတော့စိတ်ကလေးကြီးကြည်လို့တော့နောက်အတိညာလေးအခြေခံဆိုပြီးတော့အစစ်စစ်စစ်စစ်ဖြစ်လာတယ်သူတို့ဖြင့်ကျ ဆုံးကျတဲ့ယုံနာတရားတွေပေါ်မှာခုပင်ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့အခုပင်ဖြစ်တဲ့အပြစ်ကိုခတ်တော့သိမြင်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဖြစ်လိုက်တဲ့သတ္တတရားတွေမှာယုံကြည်လက်ခံတာပေါ့လေတရားရတာတွေတွေ့လာတော့အဲ့ဒီကကြောက်လို့ရှိရင်တရားရတာတွေ့လာတော့ဒီနည်းအောင်မှန်တယ်မိမိလုပ်ကြည့်တဲ့အခါမှာဓမ္မဒီလိုအကျိုးတွေရနေတယ်ဆိုတော့ပေါ့လေသတ္တတရားဟာယုံကြတာဖြစ်လာတယ်ယုံကြည်ယုံဆိုတာဖြစ်လာတယ်ကောင်းလိုက်တဲ့အခါကျမှယုံကြည်ဆိုတာမျိုးဟာစာကြည့်ရအတွေးဆောက်ပြီးတော့သိတဲ့အတိအနေပြီးတော့ဖြစ်ပေါ်တဲ့ယုံကြည်မှုမျိုးမဟုတ်ဘူးလက်တွေ့အထောက်ကြည့်လို့အထောက်မှုရဲ့အကျိုးရလဒ်တွေကိုယ်ရဖြစ်လာတဲ့အခါကျမှယုံကြည်ဆိုတဲ့စကားဟာကောင်းကြီးအတိတ်ကရှင်းသိကြလာပါလိမ့်နော်
As Sayadawgyi mentioned a few days ago, where the observing mind seems to just line up one after another. At that time, clear phases are happening in the mind. The mind is clear. And when knowledge arises stage by stage, especially when one comes to see the past arising and passing away of mind and matter, which arise due to causes and are related as cause and effect, then one comes to accept that this Dhamma really is true. The method that one, because one sees through having applied the method, that one comes to see in this way, one feels that it's really true. So this type of faith is trusting faith. And this type of clear trust and confidence is not something that is gained through reading. It's gained through our personal effort and through seeing the results of our practice. So when one understands, when one has seen this in one's practice, one will understand very well what is meant by this, how this faith is both clear and trusting.
The Athavare Sura Mima Sede Patinya Hari Chumare Media Ayune Chunave Jazia Ayune Chunave Nanzia Sazia Kidia Sikuya Ayune Dale Chumare Sima What is trying in the case of the sea? Lower vision is to Neka, lower Kidway. That is lower than Toronego, a shame of the road. Majinazan and babies of the sea, Doda little Kidway. Hey, Doda little Ronom Kido. Mohana, 2 years young Kido. Yeah. The Lubida easily see and save ma Luat so Swanson Chepot. Ramu Swanson Swanji Mishilo Yavara. Goma Pimanda Limakanaru. Nenele Lujar and Pima Abuid on Namakanaru. Nenele Pulimida never. Makana, Elevida Makana Goma Kuka Mashilo Sarawale Kuka Mashilo Sina Lupita Jive Ida Kuka Akon so Vido Goma Lotte Ari in Ari Kita Nevare Kita Lumiari Pito Mi Solution Bimana Kanane Buddha Eda Kanane down over save my level, sickness at it. The social Joni, Jonah, my canny, she owns of the body. Jesus saw take care of the water. Jesus saw go on, Seiko, half share at the water. It had none at home, but didn't take your woman.
In practicing the Dhamma like this, one encounters every type of aspect of one's mind. One encounters every kind of object. Seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. One encounters imaginary objects also. And when the mind does not yet have the power needed, then when an enticing object arises, it's easy, when one encounters an enticing object, then it's easy for lobha or greed to arise. And the lobha doesn't dissipate, it doesn't go away. When there's dissatisfaction, then it's easy for anger to arise. And this also doesn't dissipate easily. And moha is always present with these. So this type of situation shows that the mind does not yet have the necessary power. When our body is weak, if we have to do a lot of activity, we can't stand it. It's tiring. When we have to be in the heat, or when we have to be in the cold, we can't stand these extremes. It's because our body doesn't have stamina, doesn't have endurance. So we have to develop the necessary energy so that we can stand tiring conditions so that we can stand the cold and stand the heat. When one encounters things which agitate the mind, which make the mind shake, which make it move, then we need to make what are called the ruling faculties of the mind strong. In today's Sayadawgyi, we'd like to speak about this again.
Jesus answered for you, Sabina Shiva. Jesus son Jesus. She lalachi, Asi lalachi, Aripi lalachi. So Ochokanare, Bayamdam Sarah. Palili were a Pala to the cover. Indriyas to the cover. Palazzo da Son that is one Pira Lucia. That is one Tintalia, attained up at Europe. To go Palito Indriyas to the cover. I would the other day to She let Son piece of Europe. Coco, take him young body. He saw it, he chilly treated over it. As he Jesus saw it, he of 12, Swanny care, lower me Yariado, de Sada, Sukim, Ne Warrior, Jim, though Sati, Ayadan Lube, the Tita, it is she. Near we bought a cinema in Yamri Moya or Gargoyle. Tuesday, social here. Gargoyle, the Argon. Somebody says to see people. Benya, the great Mandia, Kuya, Susan Pinnibo. That I would yet read the Mari Benya Savali. A good day under the use of a sea, Editia Navaga, I'm going to go. They are getting at home to the lake, a delay she loves the sea. Editia Navaha, Teta Akona Taba. Teta Akona is the sea, Tata Kiwa Pokuha. He did a homo to the Quaja with the theatre. You needed a Yamaholo she, Perida. You needed a Yasulashi, you needed Peter, a Bishim a Yari, a Junior Finan a Yari, will have a Redima, and web of the 13 pound. Could not say that Shibuya to a song of the Pukong. So I count the law, says in Yamuya, go you probably see on Kagway, the Didi Kong. The Didi says to Simu Marie Akira. Peter, Joshi, Timothy, Chin, a Dinian level. The Yadinian, Yala is the sea, Lepo Kong at the People, Kisa Bola is a Russian. Mimi Loya Makisa, Mimi Pure Makisa. Sushi Lamshi Lazara, she was a Sido Diaria Bola Data. Sushi Melu, in the Lava de Mulas of a several Caesar Data. A little looked at your a little Joshi, in the Chile, a Dina Sita Boku. Caesar Gido, a Joshi Uso, Joshi Vimelo, Matimus of the Jane, Maludo. There is no dairy level, sorry, level, take come at the body. Did he charge Jews on the other keeper?
these ruling faculties, ruling powers, when they become well developed, they can govern. In Pali, they're called bala, which means power. And when they develop, when their power is fully developed, then they can rule. And this is called Indriya. So they're called both bala and Indriya. So meditation is practicing to develop these mental qualities, to create them and to make them strong so that we are able to control ourselves. And these are, first of all, faith or trust, the power of trust and confidence. Second of all, virya, the power of courage. Third, sati, the power of vigilant mindfulness, so that defilements cannot enter the mind. Fourth, samadhi, the power of the collective mind. And fifth, panya, for knowing. So if we have not yet practiced, then these faculties don't yet have much energy. But when one practices and has developed knowledge, then these powers become very keen and strong. When one has the power of faith, one can determine what is trustworthy and what is not trustworthy. And so one is able to let go of the things that are not reliable. And with this, one becomes courageous in doing what is beneficial and suitable. So one is able to develop energy in the practice. With the development of energy, sati becomes good. And due to sati, then samadhi also becomes good. When samadhi is good, then Dhamma knowledge. If one gains Dhamma knowledge, then our ability to consider whether something is beneficial or not, whether something is suitable or not, before we undertake an action or to undertake saying something or planning something, this ability to reflect on what we are about to do becomes very good. So when one is able to reflect every time before one does something, says something, or plans something, as if one can reflect on whether it is beneficial and not beneficial, suitable or not, then one won't do anything that is not beneficial. And because of practice, this power becomes very good as well as the others. So try and see. Try with respect and care and see.
Nawaha kareshi Indriyas Day-25 Bhavanti SADHUရှိထားပါတယ်။ကိုယ်မျိုးသောအကြောင်းအချက်တို့အရာကိုယ်မျိုးသောအကြောင်းအချက်တို့ကြောင့်ဣန္ဒြိယနိကိုယ်ဘဝကိုစိုးစိုးရုပ်ရုပ်မဖြစ်ရအောင်လို့ကြီးစိုးတရားတို့သည်Day-25 Bhavanti Take me agong la dabare. Chanko chile, piso no she. Jisu swan and Bonatata sashi diari. Chita agong la dabare, Joso Havare. The council Piat Havare. Any council Piat there. But was a Jamar of Korema Pili. Yuna diari. Minekala Yuna diari Pinilla, Pibila Chizim Piedora. ကြားတဲ့အခါလည်းယုံနဲ့တရားတွေဖြစ်နေတာဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ပြည့်သွားတာနာတဲ့အခါစားတဲ့အခါထိတဲ့အခါပြီးတဲ့အခါမြတ်တော်သတ္တမျက်လုံးပိတ်တာဖွင့်တာကစားပါလေယုတ်တိနာနဲ့တွဲဖြစ်နေတာဖြစ်မြန်တယ်လို့အပြစ်လည်းမြန်ပါလေခုအဲ့ဒါတွေကိုလိုက်ပြီးအောင်ကြည့်ရတာဖြစ်တော့စိတ်လေးသိခံလို့ရပါဘူးငြင်းတော်ဝိရိယနဲ့ဖြတ်လက်နေရပါလားတဲ့အောင်လည်းပဲချိန်ပြရပါတယ်ဇာနဲ့ဒါသိအရေးကြီးပါတယ်နုကြတဲ့ကြဖြတ်လက်မှုနဲ့ချိန်သားကြိုက်ဖို့အဲ့ဒါအများကြီးရှိရပါတယ်တော့ဒီတော့ယုံနဲ့တရားတွေပေါ်ပြီးတော့ပြောက်ပြက်တာကြီးပဲဆိုတာပေါ့လေအမထုတ်ခင်ကလည်းပဲလက်ခံထားရပါတယ်ယုံကြည်ထားရပါတယ်မြဲတဲ့ဘက်ကကိုယ်အကြောင်းကြီးရှာပြီးတော့ခုမခုခံရဘူးလို့ဆိုရတကယ်အားထုတ်လို့တွေ့ပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲပြက်တဲ့ဘက်ကကိုယ်ကထောက်ခံရမယ်ကိုယ်ကအကြောင်းယုတ်တိတွေပြောပြီးတော့ရင်းဆံနေရဘူးလို့ဆိုလို့ရအဲဒါတရားအထုတ်တဲ့ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ပထမဆုံးပြည့်စုံရမယ်လက်ခံယုံကြည်မှုအဲဒါတဲ့အရေးကြီးပါတယ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ယုံနာချုပ်ပြချာဧကံရှိရပြီဆိုတော့ယုံနာတရားကြီးဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်သွားတာဟာမလွတ်တမ်းရှိပါတဲ့ဒါကိုယ်မျိုးသောအကြောင်းတွေကပထမဆုံးအကြောင်းပဲဒါအခုယောဂီတွေအဲ့ဒီတိုင်းလုပ်နေပါတယ်ရှုခွဲအာယုပေါ်ပေါ်ချင်းကိုယ်ကစိတ်လေးနိကမှုမရှိပဲနဲ့အဲ့ဒီယုံနာတရားတွေပေါ်ပြီးတော့ချက်ချင်းပြောက်သွားတာပဲဆိုတာကိုယ်တို့ဖြစ်အောင်လို့လိုက်ပြီးတော့မှားရတာမလို့ရဘူးလားအဲ့ဒီတိုင်းလုပ်နိုင်လို့ရှိရင်အတိညာဉ်ကြီးထူးခြားလာတဲ့အခါဟုတ်ပါလားဆိုတာဒါမှန်ပါလားဒီနည်းလည်းမှန်တယ်အဲ့ဒီနည်းလည်းကြိုးစားကြည့်လို့ငါဒါတွေ့နေပြီဆိုတာပေါ့လေလက်ခံယုံကြည်လောက်ပါပဲကိုယ်တိုင်အဲ့ဒါနှစ်ဖက်ကကြာမှစာရင်းနဲ့လက်ကြီးပေါင်းစပ်ပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေယုံကြည်မှုဖြစ်ပုံလေးတွေပြီးတော့ဝိရိယဒီအားကောင်းလာပုံလေးတွေပေါ့လေစာရင်းနဲ့လက်ကြီးပေါင်းစပ်ပြီးတော့ပြောပါမယ်ဒီနေ့ကတော့တဏှာကြီးပြည့်တော့ဒီမှာပဲရကြအောင်စို့
that there are 9 causes by which the ruling powers, the Indriyas, become strong, become keen. If these 9 factors are present, if these 9 factors are developed completely, then the Indriyas, the mental powers called the Indriyas, will become strong. And among these 9 factors, the first is that in the body, mind and matter are arising and passing away. When seeing happens, it arises and then passes away. Hearing arises and then passing away. Also in smelling, mind and matter are arising and passing away. In tasting, mind and matter arise and pass away. In touching, they arise and then pass away. Blinking, opening, closing the eyes, and all these things. Mind and matter are arising quickly and passing away quickly. And because we are practicing to see this, we can't be slow in our effort. We have to be alert and active. And there also must be accurate aim. We have to always apply aiming. So these 2 factors must always be present. mind and matter are always arising and passing away, and they all of them, all mind and matter arises and passes away. So before one practices, one has to accept this. That means that one shouldn't try, we are working to try to see this, so one should not start out by trying to deny that it is so. So the first factor that one needs is we have to have faith that this is so, that all mind and matter arises and then passes away. So we have to observe mind and matter which arise and pass away. We have to always observe it. And this is the first cause for the effect, the Indriyas to become strong. And the yogis are doing this now. When the object to be observed arises in one's being, they observe so as not to miss, so as to see. And if they do this, when they actually see, when the yogi actually sees how mind and matter arise and then pass away through direct experience, one will come to acceptance of this. One will realize this really is true, that mind and matter arise and pass away. So tomorrow, Sayadawgyi would like to speak about how faith arises and is developed in terms of theory and practice, and also how virya develops. That's all for today.